Hey, what is up YouTube? It's me again, Art Solo, here to talk with you today about why you, yes you, should finally start riding a motorcycle. In this video, I'll discuss some of the fears commonly associated with riding a motorcycle and why I think you should still give it a try. I'll also share with you a true story about how I myself got into riding, and I'll try to demonstrate how if I can do it, so can you. This video is mainly for those of you thinking about pulling the trigger and getting on a bike, but who still have some doubts. Those of you who might still be on the fence about going for it. Maybe you think it's too difficult, or maybe you think it's too dangerous. So if you're watching this video, then you're like me, before I took the leap onto the life of two wheels, searching for content on YouTube and other forms of media about getting started on a motorcycle. And since you're watching this, then I'll make the assumption that you're actually interested in riding, and I'm here to tell you that that's actually a good thing. First, let me start from the beginning, about the first time I ever got on a motorcycle. It was actually a dirt bike, and this was about 6 years ago. My friends were having a dirt biking trip, and I was asked to come along. I gladly accepted. So, once we arrived at the off-road park, I got on the bike. Keep in mind that this was only a child-sized dirt bike. I proceeded to rev the engine a little bit in neutral, and after a moment of getting used to the sound and feel of the machine, I clicked it into first gear. I let off the clutch and gave it some gas. Well, actually, I gave it a lot of gas, and I shot forward like a race car. It didn't occur to me to let off the throttle, or pull in the clutch, or squeeze the brakes. Anything that would have slowed me down. Instead, I panicked, and for some reason, I gave the bike more throttle. The front wheel came up, and before I knew it, I'd crashed into the side of my brother's truck. I'd whiskey throttled, and it hurt a lot. I was scared, and needless to say, any confidence I once had in myself to fully operate a motorcycle full time had quickly diminished. And I did want to operate a motorcycle full time. It was something I really wanted to do. I remember flipping through different motorcycle magazines and Googling different bike manufacturers' lineups. I'd visualize myself one day casually pulling my bike up to the campus parking lot, pipes flaring. I looked really cool on a bike, at least in my imagination. But after the whiskey throttle incident, I was done. At least for 5 years I was. Then, after about 5 years of licking my wounds, the itch came back to ride. I was on Google and YouTube more than ever. Eventually, I started watching tons of YouTube videos on how to ride for beginners. And I mean everything. How to fill your gas tank, the proper way to mount a bike, how to park on a hill, how to ride at low speeds, how to lane split, the safest way to brake, the correct way to switch gears. Everything, and I paid really close attention. I strongly encourage anyone who's thinking about riding to watch all the instructional videos on YouTube that they can stand. Read articles, soak it up. There are tons of videos out there on how to ride, from the most basic of functions like starting the bike to sophisticated maneuvers like countersteering, and they're all put out there by fellow riders who seem to really care about getting riders on the right track. Yami Noob and Cycle Cruiser are the first YouTubers to come to mind. I found them both very, very helpful. So after months of mulling it over, I finally said the heck with it. I went down to a place that sold used motorcycles, and I got my first bike. It was a 250cc Yamaha GZ. Keep in mind, the only experience I actually had riding a motorcycle up to this point was a dirt bike whiskey throttle experience 5 years earlier, but I was determined. I purposely selected the GZ because it was cheap, light, and not very powerful. Cheap because if all the rumors were true, and riding a motorcycle was an accident waiting to happen, at least I wouldn't be out a ton of cash. Light because myself only weighing 125 pounds, I wanted something that was easily controllable. And underpowered because again, if all the rumors were true, I didn't want to be moving excessively fast when I inevitably crashed. I started out putting around the parking lot of my apartment complex, stalling occasionally, but at least I wasn't whiskey throttling anymore. Again, if you're a noob thinking about riding, please watch some instructional videos on how to operate a motorcycle, and or take the MSF. Anyway, back to my story. I eventually built up the courage to take the 250 around the corner to the grocery store. A few days later, I took her 5 blocks away. It wasn't that hard after all. Then I went across town. Soon enough, I was taking that little bike 50 or 60 miles round trip. I wasn't stalling anymore. I started getting on the freeway. I started riding at night. After a month of the GZ250, I traded in for a Sportster, and now I ride a Dyna Lowrider S, which weighs close to 700 pounds and has a 110 cubic inch motor. I do anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 miles every month. I have never dropped a bike, and I have never laid it down. I've never been in an accident, and I'm still alive. I have all my limbs and skin. I've got more seat time and miles on a bike in the last year than many casual riders do in a decade or more. And you know what I found? I found that most of the rumors you hear about the inevitability of dying on a bike, that they are all death traps, are greatly exaggerated and just untrue. Playing Russian roulette is a death wish. I've been told that riding a motorcycle is the same. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's total BS. Loading around into a revolver, spinning the chamber, and pulling the trigger while it's pointing at your eyeball is completely different than gearing up and riding a motorcycle in a sensible manner. Whoever tells you that riding a motorcycle is a death wish has either never rode or doesn't know what they're talking about. How do I know? Because I used to be one of those people, telling others that I would like to get a motorcycle, however, I don't want to die, so nah, I'll stick to driving my truck. Now that I ride a motorcycle full time, I'm telling you with complete honesty that controlling a motorcycle, even for me, a guy who rides a bike weighing more than 6 times what I do, is way easier than you're probably making it out to be, and way, way easier than those anti-bike naysayers are making it out to be. I'm also going to tell you with a clear conscience that riding a motorcycle is reasonably safe, so long as you're doing so in a sensible, common sense kind of way. Yes, stunting and riding 200 miles per hour and popping wheelies on your motorcycle are all things that will increase your odds of crashing and hurting yourself. But so will driving your Honda Civic at 160 miles per hour, drifting and ghost riding in circles. And if you ride your motorcycle with a little common sense, you will be basically as safe as you would be in a car, and you'll have infinitely more fun. I guarantee it. So let's talk about the payoff. Why ride? Why do it? For me, riding a motorcycle was a bucket list item of sorts. I'm only in my mid-30s, but I realized that hey, we only live once, and I didn't want to procrastinate forever like we all do with so many of our dreams. So for me, following through and living what for me was a dream was extremely rewarding. For you, the payoff may be different than it was for me. The reason you want to ride will be different than mine. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll even find out that riding just isn't for you. But I urge you to try, because you'll never know until you try. Let's say you're a utilitarian. Utilitarianism is defined as ethical theory that states that the best action is the one that maximizes utility. Basically, you base your decision, at least in part, by how useful that decision will be. If this sounds like you, then I'd point out that you'll never get from point A to point B faster than you would if you were riding a motorcycle, unless of course you were flying. And you'd be hard-pressed to find a car that gets better gas mileage than a bike, saving you money at the pump. I ride from San Jose, California to San Francisco, California and back every weekday for work. It's approximately 105 miles round trip. In a car, the daily commute takes me 180 minutes and I burn over 5 gallons of gas. On my bike, those figures are reduced to 120 minutes round trip and about 2.5 gallons of gas. In a year, this will save me over 276 hours of commuting, or approximately 11 and a half days. I will also save approximately $2,100 worth of gas. You can be a lot more productive if you switch from a car to a bike, or at least split the difference between both forms of transportation. Alright, let's say you're not a utilitarian. Instead, let's say you're a hedonist. Hedonism is defined as the ethical theory that pleasure, in the sense of satisfaction and desires, is the highest good and the proper aim of human life. You believe that life is about experiences and fun, things that make you feel good. And the bottom line is, riding a motorcycle is a heck of a lot of fun. It's exciting and exhilarating, and you'll even meet a lot of cool people along the way. You'll go places and do new things, simply because you can. Think of all the time you spend behind the wheel of a car, crawling along at 65 miles per hour, or 45, or 25, zombied out and numb. Riding a motorcycle is the complete opposite. It's a sensory overload. It's electrifying, and yet somehow calming at the same time. They say that riding is the best therapy, and I tend to agree. Listen guys, there are many other things you could do with your time and money other than get into riding. Yeah, you could skydive, or you could boar hunt, or rock climb. All of those activities would be a blast. They sound really fun. but you can't do any of those things every single day like you can with a motorcycle. If you work for a living, then you obviously have to get to work. This means that you now have an excuse and availability to have a little bit of fun every single day. I promise you that it's not as hard or as dangerous as you've heard. If I can do it, so can you. Ride safe, ride often. Peace.